Hi everyone! Today I'm going to be walking you through how I created these loose watercolor ornaments. Now, I will have all the supplies that I'm using listed down below, as well as the traceable and the real-time version of this over on my Patreon. But I'm using my Graham paints for this, and I chose those because a couple of the colors that I'm using have some really great flow. And the colors that I'm using here are cadmium yellow, permanent alizarin crimson, and phthalo blue. And as you can see, this permanent alizarin crimson, it just has a beautiful dispersion to it. So it creates like this little feather-like texture when it disperses out into the water. So first I'm putting down water because I want my paint to flow on top really nicely. And then I'll go in and fill in the rest of the area with the paint and make it darker. And as you can see, that little spot where I added some water outside of the bulb, it didn't quite flow enough for me, so I will go back and fix that after. I'll add a little bit more water and kind of help it flow out a little bit more. But I'm just sort of making sure right now that I keep the highlight on the bulb where I want it, and I'm just trying to get a nice smooth transition. So you can see here I'm just adding some clean water on top of the color that's already there. And then I'm going to pick up more of that permanent alizarin crimson and just help it blend out a little bit more because I want a little bit more flow in that area. And then I go ahead and just wet the paper again for the next bulb. And I'm using the cadmium yellow here for this one. Now the cadmium yellow doesn't flow as much as the other colors, so you got to kind of work it around a little bit more, but I'm just doing the exact same thing and making sure I keep that highlight area. And I'll use my other brush to blend that out so that I get a really nice smooth transition. And then once that's dried, I do the same thing again. I add a little bit of water coming out of one of the corners of the bulb, and then I'll just tap in some of that cadmium yellow pigment there. And I just take the end of my brush and kind of help it disperse out evenly again. Now, because this color doesn't blend out as much on its own, it needs a little bit more help to get that nice smooth transition. And then again with the third bulb here, I like to go ahead and just wet the paper really quickly. Because this paper does dry fairly quick, it gives me a little bit more time to play around with the color and get my transition for my highlight nicer. But I have found that you can play for quite a while on this paper and it doesn't tend to bloom easily. So that's something I've noticed with this paper. Because I noticed at one point one of the areas on the blue bulb here was drying quite a bit, and I went back in with some wet paint and it didn't bloom at all, so that was quite a surprise for me. And again, I'm trying to create that shadow where the yellow bulb and the red bulb is on top of the blue one. And again, I just take that clean water and have it coming out of one area of the bulb. And again, I just tap the phthalo blue in there. Now, this color disperses quite nicely like the permanent alizarin crimson does as well. Now I'm taking my Winsor Newton gold and silver inks, and I'm using the gold on the red and the yellow bulb, and I'll be using the silver one on the blue bulb. And for these, I'm using my size 2 brush here, and I want my brush to be as dry as possible because you don't need water with these inks. These inks are opaque enough so that if you make a mistake with your bulb and you get the color in that area, it will cover over top of it, no problem. Now I'm just taking my ruler and I'm just taking a fine liner here. I think I'm using the Derwent one, and I'm trying to line up the middle of the bulb here, the little top part on the bulb, and I'm just creating those lines down. Then I decide that this piece still needs a little bit something else. So I'm going in with that red, blue, and yellow that I used, and I'm gonna do some little taps and create some splatters. And this is one of my favorite things to do in watercolor, is to create little dispersions like this and to create spatters. And I think if you're going for a looser look, it just really adds a lot to the piece. And now I'm just taking the tape off so you can see what it looks like. And then I've got to go ahead and touch up the little top parts where the strings go off the end of the paper because the tape was covering up that area. So I'm just going to go on top real quick and fix that. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to give it a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're notified when I post my videos. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye!